That's the purpose of there being a God. If you mean by spirit, the spirit with a capital S, the Quran also refers to a spirit, just like the New Testament refers to a spirit. For Christians and for Muslims, the spirit means radically different things. Or maybe it doesn't, depending on which understanding you follow. For Muslims, the spirit is none other than the angel Gabriel. This is the spirit, the spirit with a capital S. Okay, the spirit of God in that sense is the angel Gabriel. So the spirit that God sends down to the prophets is the best of all angels, the angel Gabriel. There is no angel that is holier or more close to God than the angel Gabriel, and his whole purpose of existence is to communicate between God and the prophets of God. And so when God sends his spirit to these men, he is sending the angel Gabriel to them. And that is our understanding of spirit. As you are very well familiar, the Christian understanding is very different than that. That doesn't mean, though, by the way, that God is not a moving force in our lives. Quite the contrary. Without God, we would not live for a millisecond. You know, how? He is our provider and creator and sustainer. I mean, the very air that we breathe, God consciously wills us for us to breathe it. He is fully taking care of us for every single millisecond of our lives. I mean, without God, there is no life. One of the meanings of Lord in the Arabic language, one of the meanings of Lord is cherisher and sustainer, the one who takes care of me. So without God, there is no life. So there is no, it's not a question of how, it's a question of why, when and when not. If God doesn't take care of you, as God says in one verse in the Quran, my mercy encompasses every single aspect of creation. Nothing exists except that God's mercy is surrounding it. If God's mercy were not a part of where we are, of what we're doing, we wouldn't be able to live. Nothing can exist without the mercy of God. Even the enemies of God, God has to provide for them. Even those who deny God, they belie Him with their tongues, but God will feed them and take care of them because He is the one who provides and sustains and nourishes. So that is the physical taking care of. God also takes care of the elite of people spiritually, not all of them. Spiritually, He will take care of those who want to turn to God. Anyone who wants to be sincere in his worship of God, God will take care of him, not just in body, but in soul as well. But God does not come down or indwell within us, if that's what you're referring to or something. We as Muslims believe, no, God is distinct from the creation. He takes care of us, His mercy descends, and we're surrounded by it, but He Himself is distinct from us. Nor does He come down or dwell within us. Okay, we'll take one from here. This is a personal question. Why are you studying at Yale if you see so little value in philosophy? I believe that philosophy is a science whose basic premise is flawed. The basic premise of philosophy is that via man's intellect, the ultimate truths of life can be arrived at. There is no need for inspiration from God. And I believe that no, that's simply not true. Unless and until we have the revelation from God, we're not going to arrive at the ultimate truths of life. And the greatest indication of this is that there have been hundreds of thousands of philosophers in the history of man. And if you ever study philosophy, you must study hundreds of them. And no two of them, from the time of the pre-Socratic Greek philosophers until our modern living philosophers, no two of them ever agree on any fundamental point of life or death or ethics or morality or anything. How can this possibly be true when every single philosopher propounds a different theory of everything? If any philosopher were to come and agree with the previous philosopher, he wouldn't even be famous, he wouldn't be worth studying, right? You would be nobody. So in order to do something, he has to go against everybody. Okay? And here you have, certain philosophers who become famous merely because they know they exist. I'm referring to who here? Not Galileo. Descartes. Descartes became famous in history because he proved to people he actually exists, right? I think, therefore, I am. And you have to ask yourself, if philosophers don't even know they exist, are they worthy of us studying their ideas? So, I'm sorry, yes, I do think philosophers kind of have lost track of reality. And it's, people have to sometimes point out the emperor with no clothes. Everybody's too scared of talking about philosophers because they're so daunted by their speech. Look, guys, let's be honest here. You pick up Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, you can be as intelligent as anything. You won't understand anything they're talking about. They're just going to go over your head. And then you go, and I've gone through this stage, that's why I'm speaking. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Houston, I was in the honors college, and you're supposed to study the great works, they called it. So we studied Plato and all of these people, and I'm a freshman coming in, and I'm reading these books, and I always consider myself to be a very intelligent person. I got very high SAT scores and valedictorian in my high school and everything. I'm reading these books, I'm like, what is he talking about? And I show up in class, and everybody seems to understand what's going on, except me. It's like, whoa, they all understand except me. And it took me many, many years to realize it's basically the emperor with no clothes. Everybody is scared to point out the obvious, which is, this stuff doesn't make any sense. It has no relevance to our lives. It has nothing to do with me as a human being. What is the meaning of concepts and forms and living in caves and shadows? That's Aristotle here. What has it got to do with anything? It's not going to make me a better person or make me understand how to live or provide for my family or anything. Somebody has to say it bluntly. And so in order to say that, I need to study it. And I speak from experience. I know what I'm talking about. It's not something that I have no clue what it is. I know it and I'm studying it. And also, I'm not just studying philosophy at Yale. My PhD is Islamic Studies. Therefore, I'm studying Islamic Studies. In the course of my Islamic Studies, I am personally concentrating on philosophy as well, because I find it very interesting coming from a different perspective now. Not coming as a student. Coming, in my humble opinion, as an outside observer now. I'm not affected by the views of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates and Descartes and Hume and Nietzsche. I'm not affected by them. But I read them and I see where they're coming from. And honestly, I feel a bit of empathy and sympathy for them. Because most of them live very miserable lives. They couldn't... Again, I'm not making this up. They themselves live very miserable lives. They never found these eternal truths. Read about Nietzsche, read about Socrates and how he died, and Plato and whatnot. Somebody has to just point out the emperor is naked, and if that has to be me, then so be it. Any questions from the floor? Yes.
You stated that Islam is the true monotheistic religion. Yet when you were describing how it was, I saw my religion. I'm a Jew. And I saw Judaism described perfectly. Why do you say that Judaism is not a true monotheistic religion?
Yes, the amazing thing is that out of all the religions in the world, the two religions that are fighting the most are Jews and Muslims, but the two religions that are the most common and have the most commonalities are Judaism and Islam. And I never cease to be amazed at the similarities between Judaism and Islam. The more I study Judaism, the more clear it becomes to me that the source of these two religions is the same. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had no interaction with the Jews, especially in Mecca. Even when he came to Medina, it was cursory interaction. He never studied Jewish law or Jewish thought. And yet when you read the theology of Islam, when you read the legal system of Islam, it is pretty much the same thing in terms of dietary requirements, in terms of purification, in terms of even women's menses. If you know the laws of Judaism, the laws of Islam, pretty much the same. And it would just amaze me more and more studying about these issues. And the conclusion is obvious for the Muslim, and that is that the source of both of these laws is the same. When God revealed to Moses how to live his life, the same man who lived at the time of Moses is the same man who lived at the time of Muhammad. Those laws don't change. What's bad for men then is bad for men now. And so that law doesn't change. And that's why Jesus Christ himself affirmed the law of Moses. He was a Jew. He didn't eat pork. He was circumcised. Unlike many of those who claim to follow him, they don't follow the law that he himself followed. So the laws of God don't change over time. Therefore, I agree with you that yes, for the most part, Judaism and Islam are extremely similar. But there is one point where we will have to basically show that this is the difference, and that is a rejection of the prophets of God. So it's not to do with monotheism. Jews are monotheistic. So I do agree with you that, and I would make a disclaimer here, not disclaimer, but sorry, I speak three fluent languages. Sometimes my brain starts thinking in a different language here. I'd make a specification here, if you like, qualification as I'm looking for. Qualification, and that is that, personally speaking, I think that it's the Orthodox Jews who really and truly are similar to the Muslims. If you look at the Reformists or even the Conservatives, for the most part, they're kind of rejecting the law of God. And I'm speaking as an outside observer. If you're a Jew, you're a Jew. Just like if you're Muslim, you're a Muslim. You either accept it or you don't. So the Orthodox Jews who fulfill the laws of the Torah and the laws of Moses, yes, there's a lot of similarity. But there's one issue that we're going to have to say that's a very major issue. And that is to deny some of the prophets of God. And for us as Muslims, to deny the prophethood of any prophet is tantamount to rejecting God Himself. So if a Muslim were to say, I don't believe in Moses, but I believe in Jesus and Muhammad. Or if a Muslim were to say, I don't believe in Jesus, but I believe in Moses and Muhammad. That person is not a Muslim. Because the Quran very clearly says, belief in all the prophets is a fundamental principle of our religion. Hence, for the Jews to say, we don't believe in Jesus and Muhammad, two prophets whom God sent, then that is a rejection of the faith, even if it is not polytheism. You can reject faith in other ways than polytheism. So the Jews, I agree with you, you're right. And if I didn't make that disclaimer, I'll make it now. You are absolutely correct. For the Orthodox Jews, they are following the law of God and they're worshipping God and they believe in that one monotheistic God. But some people will point out, even the concept of God slightly differs in the sense of the names and attributes here. Okay, we cannot visualize God. Neither is God characterized by any negative attributes. God does not forget. God does not regret. God does not cry. God does not rest. God does not know where Adam is in the Garden of Eden. Certain things that are mentioned, the Muslims would say, no, that's just not the God that we know in the Quran. God is all perfect. No negative attribute is applicable to Him. But that's a fine point, and I agree it is a fine point. But still, in essence, you are right. That is.
Excuse me. Sheikh, could you just be a little more brief? We still got some more important questions. You want this one now, right there in front of you.
Okay. You're referring to God in the masculine. Couldn't God be feminine? God is neither male nor female. So God is God. But the Quran refers to Him in the masculine, and hence in basically keeping with Quranic terminology, and the Bible as well, the ancient Hebrew scriptures refers to God in the masculine as well, simply because in those languages talking about God, it was more respectful to use the masculine in the pronouns. However, God Himself there is nothing like Him. There is no species that there is male or female. So, God Himself is not described with that gender, but to refer to Him, the Quran and also the ancient Aramaic and ancient Hebrew, it is a part of respect to use the masculine pronoun. But that doesn't mean that the gender applies to God. Okay. Any questions from the floor? Yes, go ahead.
Do all the prophets agree with each other? Because I think you just said that you have to. Thank you. You have to believe in all the prophets. Do all the prophets agree with each other in everything that they say? Or if they
yes,
don't, that
okay.
would be kind of tough because then you get contradictions.
All the prophets agree with one another in theology and in the basic broad outlines of morality. All the prophets agree with one another in theology and in the broad outlines of morality. There is no difference of theology between Adam and Moses and Abraham and Noah and all of the Israelite prophets and Jesus and Muhammad. Nothing. The Quran in one verse says to Muhammad, announce to people, say, I'm not bringing anything new that the prophets haven't said before. That's a sign that a man is a prophet when he brings forth the same theology. And this is one point that Muslims don't understand about Christian theology, that the theology that Christians believe in is radically different than the theology found in the Old Testament. All of these hundreds of prophets come, Abraham and Moses and all of these Israelite prophets, and they're preaching a theology. And then the Christian theology as it exists today, of course we as Muslims believe this is a theology that was invented by Constantine and Paul. It is not the theology of Jesus Christ. It is a theology of Constantine and Paul and other specific individuals. But it amazes Muslims that how can you have a continuity when a man comes and then claims to be radically different from all that have come before him? And so one of the claims of prophethood for the Prophet Muhammad is to say, I am preaching the same thing that all the prophets before me preached, which is there is only one all-perfect God, and He has sent prophets so that that God be worshipped.
La ilaha illallah. Allah, there's only one God and